The crystal clink of champagne glasses and low murmurs of wealth filled the air of the Montrose estate. Glittering gowns, tailored suits, conversations about private jets and rare wines. It was the kind of world Jade Morales had only ever seen through a screen. And yet, here she was, standing by the grand staircase, clutching a paper delivery bag from a local fusion bistro, one that barely kept the lights on. Her mission was simple: drop off an order, leave quickly, and avoid eye contact. Then the scream. What the hell? All heads turned sharply toward the entrance, and time seemed to freeze. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a spotless white suit stood drenched in deep red juice, his expression frozen between shock and pure rage. A strawberry, hibiscus drink dripped from his collar, stained his cuffs, and pooled on the marble floor. And in front of him, wide-eyed and paralyzed, stood Jade. Gasps echoed across the room. Who let a delivery girl in here? She probably thought this was a food court. Someone called security. Jade's face burned with embarrassment. Her hands shook as she pulled a napkin from the bag and awkwardly tried to dab at the man's jacket. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't see you, she stammered. The man recoiled as if her touch burned. You've ruined a $30,000 suit, he barked. Get her out, now. A security guard appeared almost instantly, taking Jade's arm with mechanical precision. You don't belong here, he said flatly. She tried to pull back. Please, I'm just delivering food. The app sent me to the wrong place. And now you're trespassing, the man in white growled. Let her go. The voice cut through the room with quiet authority. Everyone turned. From the center of the crowd, a man stepped forward. Not just any man, Grant Leighton, the city's youngest billionaire and CEO of Leighton Dynamics. His black suit fit like armor. He didn't shout, he didn't rush. He simply walked toward them, hands in his pockets, calm as ever. The security guard hesitated. The banker blinked. Grant, are you seriously defending her? Grant ignored him entirely and stopped in front of Jade. What's your name? He asked. She blinked, too stunned to speak. Jade, she finally muttered. He nodded once. And why are you here? I'm from the Green Bowl restaurant. I do deliveries. The app messed up and brought me here instead of the Penrose Tower. Grant raised an eyebrow. The Green Bowl. That's the place with the yakisoba bowls. Jade hesitated. Yeah, we make a few kinds. My grandmother came up with the recipe, actually. Grant finally smiled. Rare, unexpected flicker. You made that ginger miso yakisoba. I helped prepare it. My grandma's the real genius. Grant rubbed his chin, thoughtful, then said, I need a cook. Jade's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me. Gasps rippled across the room. The banker looked like he might faint. You're joking, he hissed. I'll pay you triple what you make doing deliveries, Grant said, eyes still locked on Jade. Jade's mouth opened and closed, triple. But she couldn't just abandon her grandma's tiny restaurant without thinking. She squared her shoulders 5 times. The room collectively inhaled. The banker sputtered. Grant raised an eyebrow. You're bold. I have bills. A grin crept onto his face. 4 times. 4.5. Grant tilted his head. Do you always negotiate like this? Only when I'm terrified. A slow chuckle escaped him. Then he held out his hand. Deal. Jade stared at it, then took it, just like that. The same girl who had walked in as a delivery mistake, left with a job from the most elusive CEO in town, and she had no idea what she'd just agreed to. The next morning, Jade woke up, questioning everything. Did that really happen? Did she really get hired on the spot by a billionaire? From the kitchen, her grandmother called, "Jade, breakfast." She shuffled out of her room, still dazed. Her grandmother was already stirring spring rolls in the fryer for the day's deliveries. "How was that fancy party?" the old woman asked, not turning around. Jade poured herself some coffee and sat at the table. "It was great. I spilled juice on a millionaire, got humiliated, almost arrested. And now I work for Leighton." The spatula froze mid-air. "You what? I know. Sounds insane." He offered 4.5 times what I make, but only part-time. I couldn't just leave you here alone. Her grandmother went back to frying, silent. After a pause, she asked, "Do you trust him?" Jade shrugged. "He's eaten our yakisoba every Thursday for a year. If he was dangerous, he probably would have kidnapped me already." The old woman chuckled. "Well, if he gives you trouble, tell me. I'll handle him." Jade finished her coffee in 2 gulps. "Wish me luck. Hope I don't burn down a billionaire's kitchen." By late morning, Jade stood outside Leighton Tower, the headquarters of Grant's empire. Glass, steel, and elegance surrounded her. People in suits passed her without even glancing. She adjusted her apron. She definitely didn't belong. Inside, the receptionist barely looked up. "Can I help you? I'm Jade, Grant's new cook." A long pause. The receptionist blinked slowly, then picked up the phone. "Mr. Leighton, your new cook is here." A muffled response. She pointed toward the elevator. "Top floor." Jade swallowed hard and stepped in. The ride felt like an hour. Her stomach twisted. When the doors opened, she found a kitchen unlike anything she'd seen. Marble counters, floor-to-ceiling windows, stainless steel everything, and Grant, leaning casually on the counter, arms crossed. "Took you long enough. I got lost." 3 times, he smirked. "Let's see if you can actually cook. You hired me without knowing. Life's about risk. What if I'm terrible? I'll fire you." Jade narrowed her eyes. "Is that a challenge?" He shrugged. "If you want it to be." She rolled up her sleeves. "Let's cook." The kitchen smelled like money. Everything gleamed. The countertops, the chrome range, the perfectly stacked spice racks. It felt more like a showroom than a place to actually cook. Jade took a slow breath as she stared at the ingredients laid out in front of her. Fresh noodles, bok choy, scallions, soy sauce, sesame oil, all familiar. But the tension in the air was anything but. Grant stood across from her, arms still crossed, watching her like a hawk. "Don't let the shine intimidate you," he said. Jade glanced at him. "I'm not scared of marble. You look like you're preparing for a duel." "Maybe I am," she replied, grabbing a knife. She tried to focus, to ignore the fact that the richest man in the city was 2 feet away, studying her every move. She chopped the vegetables, trying not to tremble. The pan hissed as she added oil, the scent of garlic rising instantly. Her hands moved by memory, guided by years spent in her grandmother's kitchen. Ginger, onion, mushrooms. The sizzle grounded her. "You're staring again," she muttered without looking up. "I'm observing technique," Grant replied, stepping a little closer, or waiting to call the fire department. He smirked. "We'll see." But Jade was too distracted. Her nerves were too raw. And in that moment of distraction, her hand slipped. She poured too much soy sauce into the pan. The smell shifted immediately. Too salty. She panicked, tried to adjust with sugar and vinegar, but it was no use. She cursed under her breath. Grant said nothing. He walked over, took a plate, served himself a portion, and picked up a pair of chopsticks. He took one slow bite, chewed, and paused dramatically. Jade braced herself. "Have you ever swum in the ocean?" he asked, tilting his head. She blinked. "What?" "Because that's exactly how much salt is in this." Jade groaned and leaned on the counter. "Great. First day and I already ruined dinner." Grant placed the chopsticks down gently. "Rookie mistake, but I've had worse." She narrowed her eyes. "So, I pass." "You pass with conditions," he said with a small grin. "Condition 1, never drown my food again." "No promises," she replied, crossing her arms. Before either of them could speak again, the kitchen door swung open. A tall man in a dark grey suit entered without knocking. His expression was tight, professional, and completely unimpressed. "Grant," the man said curtly, "we need to talk." Grant sighed, already looking tired. He turned to Jade. "Finish cleaning up and meet me in my office." She gave a quick nod, wiping her hands. The man's eyes flicked toward her briefly before following Grant out. His body language screamed disapproval. Alone again, Jade looked around the kitchen. The high-end design, the view of the skyline, it all felt surreal. She'd just cooked her grandmother's yakisoba in a billionaire's penthouse. And while it hadn't been perfect, he hadn't fired her. That had to count for something. By the time she finished wiping down the counters, curiosity got the best of her. She stepped into the hallway and followed the faint sound of voices. The office door was ajar. She stopped just short, listening. "This isn't the time for distractions," the man in the suit said firmly. "You should be focused on the Sterling merger, not hiring street cooks." Jade narrowed her eyes at the term. "Street cook." She pushed the door open fully and walked in. "If I'm a street cook, then you're just an office executive. It's the same thing." Both men turned toward her, surprised. Grant quickly introduced her. "Jade, this is Nolan Kent, my financial advisor." Nolan gave her a look like she was something under his shoe. "Charmed, I'm sure." She didn't flinch. "Nolan, was it? Maybe stop calling people names just because they don't wear a tie." Grant chuckled softly. Nolan wasn't amused. "You're really going through with this?" Nolan asked Grant. "Yes," Grant said, leaning against his desk. "Her food speaks for itself." Nolan scoffed. "Then prove it. Introduce her to your business partners. Let them be the judge." Jade blinked. "Wait. What?" Grant looked at her, considering the idea. He's not wrong. "Hold on," Jade said quickly. "You want me to cook for investors?" Nolan smiled smugly. "Tomorrow night, big dinner, high expectations. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll wow them with street noodles." Grant tilted his head. "Do you want to do it?" Jade crossed her arms. "Do I get to choose the menu?" "Usually these dinners lean toward fine dining," Nolan interjected. "I wasn't hired to follow rules," Jade snapped. "I was hired because the food is good," Grant grinned. "I like that." Nolan sighed and looked at them both. "Just don't poison anyone." "No promises," Jade replied sweetly. That night, Jade returned home buzzing with nerves. Her grandmother was already closing the restaurant when Jade walked in. "Back already?" she asked. "Kind of," Jade said, setting her bag down. "I have to cook for a table full of millionaires tomorrow night." Her grandmother's eyes widened. "They're really throwing you to the wolves." Jade nodded, and I said yes. "Of course you did," the old woman said with a smile. "You always had." A fire in you. I just hope I don't burn the building down. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Jade couldn't sleep. Tomorrow would be her first real test. Not just for Grant, not just for the job, but for herself. She wasn't just delivering food anymore. She was going to feed the elite. And they'd remember her name. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Jade stepped into the top floor once again, this time carrying a basket packed with ingredients she'd carefully selected that morning. Her mind was sharp, but her stomach buzzed with nerves. Cooking for Grant was one thing he had a weird sense of humor, and, at the end of the day, liked her food. But tonight wasn't about him. It was about people like Nolan. The boardroom had been transformed into a sleek dining space. Dim lighting, polished cutlery, and tall glass windows overlooking the city. Grant was already there, dressed in his usual black suit, but with an added air of sharpness tonight. 6 investors, plus me, he said as she set her basket on the counter. Make something simple, but unforgettable. Jade glanced up. Define unforgettable, he smiled. The kind that shuts up people like Nolan. She began prepping, shrimp fritters to start, her grandmother's special fried rice with fresh herbs, sweet and sour beef, and of course, the dish that started it, all her. Signature YAKISOBA. As she chopped and stirred, she could hear voices gathering in the next room. Polite laughter, clinking glasses. Nolan's voice floated through the open door. Already too smug for her liking, Jade peeked through the glass. Suits, diamonds. One woman wore a silk scarf that probably cost more than Jade's monthly rent. Still, she kept her focus. Every stir, every seasoning, done with care. The aromas slowly filled the room. Crisp shrimp, warm soy, ginger, and sesame. She plated each dish as if it were art. When she sent out the yakisoba, she held her breath. Moments. Later, soft murmurs. A pause in the conversation. Then came the first compliment. This is ... surprisingly excellent, one man said. Is this really homemade? Asked another. Jade remained quiet in the kitchen, watching from the shadows. She didn't need applause. Their eyes, their smiles, that was enough. But not for Nolan. He stood near the doorway, arms crossed. Seems you've impressed them. Jade raised an eyebrow. I always do. Just as she turned back to tidy the counter, the room shifted. Perfume entered before the woman did. Sharp, floral, expensive. Ethan, darling, I've been looking for you. Jade froze. A tall blonde in a fitted cream suit walked in without invitation, her heels clicking loudly against the marble. Her lips curled into a confident smile as she scanned the room, then locked eyes with Jade. And who is this? Grant didn't even glance up from his plate. Jade, my personal chef. The woman let out a laugh that made Jade's skin crawl. A chef? Since when do you need a chef? You always hated people in the kitchen. Jade stood her ground, arms folded, chin high. Well, now, he doesn't just need one. He has the best. The woman arched a brow at her boldness. I'm Samantha, by the way, still very much a part of Ethan's life. So you're the ex, Jade replied with a small, practiced smile. Samantha's expression tightened. Grant finally set down his fork and sighed. What do you want, Samantha? Dinner at Lucille, like old times. Tomorrow? No, he replied simply. I have meetings. Then, the night after, I don't go out to eat anymore, Grant said. I have my own chef now. Samantha looked at Jade, disgusted. You really think anything she makes can compete with a five-star restaurant? Jade didn't flinch. There's only one way to find out. Samantha narrowed her eyes. Careful, sweetheart. This world eats girls like you alive. Grant stood up. We're done here. Samantha tossed her hair and turned on her heel, leaving behind a trail of perfume and tension. As soon as the door closed, Jade muttered, "Has she always been like that?" "Worse," Grant replied, "but thanks for not backing down." She looked at him. "Don't thank me yet. I might cook revenge into her food one day." He smiled faintly and returned to his seat. Back in the kitchen, Jade leaned against the counter, breath finally steady. It had been a perfect dinner till the interruption. Later that night, when she returned home, her grandmother noticed her. Silence. "You're thinking too much," the old woman said gently. "I met his ex tonight. And she looked at me like I crawled out of a sewer." Her grandmother chuckled softly. "Then you must have intimidated her." "Why would I intimidate anyone like that?" "Because you're standing where she used to." Jade didn't sleep well. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Samantha's smile. Her confidence, her arrogance. The next morning, things were different. As Jade entered the top-floor kitchen, the counters were cluttered with takeout containers from upscale restaurants, each dish more pretentious than the last. Gold flakes, foam, smeared sauces that looked like modern art. "What happened here?" Jade asked. Grant looked up from a barely touched plate of truffle risotto. "Nolan insisted I refine my palate." Jade opened a container labeled Le Seal. "The place," Samantha mentioned. He nodded. She tasted a bite and immediately winced. "This tastes like paper with expensive toppings." Grant smirked. "Finally, someone who gets it." Jade tossed the fork into the sink and pulled out her own ingredients. "If he wants refinement, I'll show him real food. Cooking to prove a point." Grant asked. "Always." The scent of sautéed garlic and ginger filled the air again. Jade moved with confidence, reclaiming the space. When she placed the plate in front of him, Grant took a single bite on, his shoulders relaxed. "This is good," he said. "Better than gold dust and air foam." He chuckled. "Not even a contest." Before Jade could respond, the door opened again, and to her disbelief, Samantha stepped back inside. "Good morning, darlings." Jade closed her eyes. "She's like a perfume ad with legs." Samantha walked up, cool and composed. "Just came to see how my favorite couple is doing." "We're not a couple," Jade said instantly. Samantha tilted her head. "Of course not. You're just living in his kitchen." Jade smiled sweetly. "Would you like to stay for breakfast? I can show you how real food is made." Samantha narrowed her eyes. "You have no idea what world you stepped into, and you have no idea what I'm capable of." Grant watched from the side, silent but intrigued. When Samantha finally left, slamming the door behind her, Jade leaned against the sink. "Is she always this dramatic?" "Only when she feels threatened," Grant replied. "Good," Jade said. "She should be." The scent of frying shrimp filled the air, a warm contrast to the icy marble beneath Jade's feet. She moved with quiet focus through Grant's private kitchen, the same one that once made her feel like an imposter. But tonight, there was no room for doubt. Everything had to be perfect. Shrimp fritters, golden and crisp, fried rice with fresh herbs and toasted sesame, sweet and sour beef with hand-cut strips of sirloin, glazed in a sauce she'd fine-tuned for years. And the star of the night, yakisoba with handmade noodles. Outside the kitchen, The voices of powerful investors echoed faintly. Laughter, clinking glasses, and conversations about market shares and international expansions. They didn't know Jade Morales, but they would by the end of the night. Grant entered, sleeves rolled, tie loosened. Need anything? Jade didn't look up. Unless you're offering to julienne carrots, no. He leaned against the island. Just checking. Nolan's out there, frowning at the wine selection. He frowns at everything that isn't wearing. Armani Grant chuckled. That's accurate. The first plates were sent out. Jade listened for reactions, not applause, just silence or movement. She peeked around the glass divider and saw a woman in pearls lean toward her plate with cautious curiosity. A man with silver hair raised his brows after a single bite of rice. Then came the nods, subtle at first, then followed by murmurs of approval. One man whispered something to Grant and pointed toward the kitchen. Jade quickly stepped back, heart pounding. This was happening. Really happening. Grant returned minutes later, eyes shining. You're killing it. Good. I want them to talk. You might be onto something, he said, stealing a piece of beef from the tray. Hey, Jade scolded. He raised both hands. Quality control. By the time desserts, more sesame mochi with black sugar syrup hit the table, Jade was starting to breathe normally again, until she heard the heels, that click-click sound that had become unmistakable. Samantha, Jade, looked up just in time to see her sweeping through the dining area like she owned it, her platinum hair pulled into a dramatic bun, and her lips painted a red that looked like warning. What is she doing here? Jade muttered, stepping behind the counter. Grant didn't answer right away. He followed her gaze. She wasn't invited. And yet here she is, Jade said, drying her hands. Seconds later, Samantha appeared in the kitchen doorway. You've outdone yourself, she said, voice syrupy. The guests can't stop talking about your noodles. Jade wiped her hands slowly. I aim to impress. Samantha leaned in, lowering her voice. But don't get comfortable. One dinner doesn't make you part of this world. Jade didn't blink. And one tailored suit doesn't make you royalty. Samantha smirked, so feisty. Grant stepped forward. Samantha, we're in the middle of something. Exactly why I'm here. She held up a cream-colored envelope, a little proposal. I'm organizing a charity gala next weekend. High profile, international guests. I want your little chef to do the catering. Jade stared at her. You want me to cook for your event? Yes, Samantha said plainly. Business is business. You're clearly talented, and I need someone with your rustic appeal. Jade's eyes narrowed. What's the catch? No catch, Samantha said, voice lilting. Except that I expect nothing short of brilliance. Grant folded his arms. You're sure about this? Samantha gave him a look. It's just food, darling. Jade didn't respond right away. Her instincts screamed no. But part of her knew what a gala like this could do for the restaurant's visibility. If she wanted to succeed, she had to be bold. She turned to Grant. What do you think? He hesitated. I don't trust her. Jade let out a slow breath. But if this works, we win again. Grant gave a reluctant nod. You're braver than I thought. Jade looked at Samantha. Fine, we'll do it. Samantha smiled, all teeth. Fabulous. As she turned to leave, she added, just don't embarrass yourself. Or him. When she was gone, Grant let out a long sigh. I don't like this. She's trying to bait me, Jade replied, and I'm going to make her regret it. That night, back in her small apartment above her grandmother's restaurant, Jade couldn't stop pacing. Her grandmother watched silently as she moved back and forth across the tiny kitchen. "You're wearing out the tiles," the old woman said softly. "I think I made a mistake because you agreed to cook. Because I agreed to cook for someone who wants me to fail." Her grandmother dried her hands on a towel and sat down. "Then don't fail." Jade stopped moving. "It's that simple," her grandmother said. "You know who you are. You know what you can do. That woman can't take that away from you." Jade sat across from her and rested her head in her hands. I keep thinking that all of this could fall apart. And if it does, I lose everything." Her grandmother nodded. "Or you start again, like we've done before." Jade let out a shaky breath. "Why does she hate me? Because you have something she doesn't. Something money can't buy." Jade looked up. "What? Resilience," her grandmother said. "And fire." The next day, back at Leighton Tower, Grant met Jade at the kitchen door with a small smirk. "You ready to feed the wolves again? I thought we were calling. Them sharks, wolves, sharks, they all want blood." Jade rolled her eyes. "Then I'll feed them something that shuts them up." As she began prepping for the gala, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected. Excitement. If Samantha wanted to challenge her, fine. Let the games begin. The sun filtered through the massive glass windows of Leighton Tower, casting soft, golden light across the kitchen as Jade chopped scallions in silence. The event with Samantha was days away, but Jade's mind wasn't on the menu. It was on the stack of folders sitting in the center of the conference table across the hall. Locations, contracts, market, analyzers. Grant was serious. He actually wanted to open a restaurant with her. She hadn't believed it, at first thought it was another one of his jokes. But this morning, he'd called her upstairs and laid it all out. "Good morning, Chef Morales," Grant said when she entered the room. Jade eyed the papers warily. "Why does this look like a trap?" He gestured for her to sit. "These are potential locations for our restaurant." Jade's jaw dropped. "You weren't kidding." Grant tapped a pen against the folder. "Not even a little." She let out a nervous laugh and sat slowly. "You're talking about opening a place with me." "I'm talking about building something people remember," he said. "And I want to do it with someone who actually knows what food is supposed to taste like." Jade stared at him, half amused, half overwhelmed. "I'm just a cook who learned from her grandmother, and I'm a guy who couldn't boil water 2 weeks ago," Grant replied with a shrug. "Perfect match." She shook her head in disbelief. "You really have no idea what you're doing, do you?" Grant grinned. "Nope, that's why I need you." He slid a folder toward her. 3 location options. 1 downtown, 1 uptown near the luxury boutiques, and 1 here. Jade flipped. Opened the last page. Her eyes widened. "Near my neighborhood." "I figured it would support your community," Grant said, watching her reaction. "And the homemade aesthetic fits. Local, real, something different." She squinted at him. "This was your idea, not Nolan's." "Mine," Grant confirmed. "Nolan thinks it's stupid, which makes me think it's genius." Jade closed the folder slowly. "You're actually serious, completely." She hesitated. "I can't leave my grandmother alone. Not for this, not for anything." "Then bring her," Grant replied, as if it were obvious. She's part of this too. Jade blinked. You make it sound so simple. It is, he said, smiling faintly. Your grandmother's the soul. Behind your cooking, you're the fire. The two of you together. That's a business. Jade was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. Okay, suppose I agree to this madness. Where do we start? With the name, Grant said, flipping a page. I was thinking taste of home. Jade made a face. That sounds like a frozen dinner brand. He raised an eyebrow. Better ideas, she thought, then smiled slowly. How about Jade's hearth? Grant considered it, then nodded. Warm, honest, real. I like it. She leaned back in her chair. I can't believe I'm doing this. He grinned. Believe it. Later that afternoon, Jade rushed back to her grandmother's restaurant. The familiar scent of broth and fried dough filled the air, calming her nerves just enough to speak. She found her grandmother folding aprons in the kitchen. Grandma, she said, out of breath, you're not going to believe this. Her grandmother looked up with soft eyes. Try me. Grant wants to open a restaurant, Jade said quickly, with me, and he wants to do it near the neighborhood. The old woman blinked, stunned. With you, yes, and I want you to come with me. Her grandmother returned to folding the apron, quiet. I don't know, Jade, she said after a moment. I'm too old to start again. This whole place runs because of you, Jade insisted. I can't do it alone. Her grandmother took her hand and smiled gently. I'll always be here for you, but it's time for you to build your own story. Jade felt a tightness in her throat. She didn't want to leave the comfort of the kitchen she grew up in, but something inside her knew her grandmother was right. The next few days were filled with planning, blueprints, menus, cost spreadsheets, name logos, and arguments. I want the food to be affordable, Jade said one morning, slamming a folder shut, without compromising quality. Grant replied evenly, I'm not charging $30 for noodles. I'm not asking you to, he said, but there's a difference between cheap and accessible. You don't get it, Jade snapped. These are recipes that came from a tiny kitchen with a broken stove. I want people like me to eat here, and I want to build something that lasts, Grant replied. We're saying the same thing. They stared at each other for a moment, breathing heavily. Then Grant's mouth twitched into a grin. We're both stubborn, Jade groaned. It's infuriating. But it's why this will work, he said. Once the concept was agreed, unauthentic flavors, warm atmosphere, fair prices, it was time to assemble the team. We need a head chef with a proven background, Nolan suggested during one of the planning meetings. I am the head chef, Jade snapped. Grant raised a calming hand. She builds her own team. That was the deal. From where? Nolan asked. The local bus stop. From my neighborhood, Jade replied, where the best food in the city is made. Grant leaned back in his chair. Let her do it. Over the next few days, Jade returned to her village like a recruiter on a mission. Mr. Alvarez, she said, knocking on the bakery door, remember when you said you missed cooking beans for a crowd? Mrs. Rosa, you said you used to bake cakes before your arthritis. Want a second chance? In less than a week, Jade had a full team, people who cooked with instinct, not instruction manuals. The first time they all stood together in the unfinished restaurant space, scuffed floors, wires exposed, smell of dust everywhere, Jade looked around and smiled. And for the first time, Grant smiled too. "You ever worked with a crew like this?" She asked him. He glanced at the group, then back at her. Not even close. They shared a look. No sarcasm, no sarcasm. Just understanding. This was real. The dream was becoming something they could both believe in. The night of Samantha's gala arrived with an unsettling stillness in the air. Jade stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, scanning the sea of glittering gowns and tuxedos. Chandeliers sparkled above tables, adorned with gold-edged menus that read, "Culinary Experience, curated by Samantha Langford." Nowhere did it mention Jade's hearth, not even in fine print. Grant appeared beside her, adjusting the cuffs of his charcoal suit. I asked her to give the restaurant credit. She promised she would. Jade stared at the printed menu again. She lied. He sighed, jaw tightening. "Let's get through the night. We'll deal with her after." Jade turned sharply. "This is my team's food. Our recipes. She can't pretend it's hers." "I know," Grant said, quietly, "but if we make a scene, she wins." Jade didn't reply. She walked toward the kitchen area they'd been assigned and began directing the team. The room smelled of roasted spices and slow-cooked broth. Her team moved fast and clean, each of them driven, focused, and proud. Trays began flowing out crispy. Shrimp wontons, glazed chicken skewers, herb rice, and small bowls of yakisoba, each dish bursting with color and care. Outside, the guests began to eat. Jade waited for the reaction. It always came, but the strange thing was, they weren't reacting. Not with nods, not with compliments, not with quiet murmurs of pleasure. Instead, they looked confused. Some whispered, others pushed plates aside. One man lifted his glass of wine and muttered to his date, "Overrated." Jade's heart stopped. "What's happening?" she whispered, turning to the kitchen. And then she saw it. A waiter, young, nervous, sweating, was slipping something from a tiny dark bottle into one of the serving trays. Jade's voice broke through the hum of the kitchen. "Hey, what are you doing?" The waiter jumped. The bottle slipped from his hand and clattered onto the tile floor. He ran. "Stop him!" Jade shouted. Grant and 2 staff members chased after him, but he vanished into the chaos of the ballroom. Jade picked up the bottle. It was unlabeled, but the scent was unmistakable. Asterisk, asterisk, bitterness, sourness. A chemical temps, asterisk, asterisk. Someone had tried to sabotage the food, her food. Moments later, Grant returned, fuming. "He's gone. No badge, no record. He wasn't on the staff list." Jade's pulse thudded in her ears. "This whole thing is rigged." Grant looked at her. "We can pull everything back. We'll explain." "No," Jade said, lifting her chin. "I'll explain. Myself." She stormed out of the kitchen and onto the stage beside the gala string quartet. The music faltered as guests turned to look. Jade grabbed the mic. Her voice was firm. "Good evening. I know you weren't expecting a speech, but I need to clear something up." The crowd went still. "That food you just ate, the food being served tonight, it was prepared by me and my team from Jade's hearth. Not Samantha Langford, not some imported chef. Real food made by real people." Gasps. Murmurs at the back of the room. Samantha rose slowly from her seat. Face pale, Jade continued, steady as a heartbeat. "If anyone doubts it, feel free to come into the kitchen. I'll make a dish for you on the spot." The crowd clapped. A few stood. Samantha stepped forward, voice tight. "This is completely inappropriate. Grant joined Jade on stage. No, what's inappropriate is taking credit for work that isn't yours. The applause grew louder. The truth had broken the surface and there was no going back. Later that night, as they walked back to the loading area, Jade was quiet. Grant glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I was scared out of my mind." "You didn't." "Look it. That's because I was too mad to care." They shared a tired laugh. In the days that followed, words spread fast. Articles popped up online. The real chef behind the gala success small restaurant stuns elite crowd at Langford Gala. Jade's hearth, from delivery girl to gourmet force lines, outside the restaurant doubled. Reporters waited outside the door. Food bloggers tagged her dishes. And then things got weird. One morning, Jade walked into the restaurant to find two men in suits waiting. "Miss Morales," one asked. "We represent the health and food safety board. We're here for an inspection." She frowned. "Why?" "We passed our last one 2 months ago." The men didn't smile. "We've received multiple anonymous complaints. Alleged unsanitary conditions. Possible infestation." Grant, who had just arrived with coffee in hand, stepped between them. "That's impossible. We still need to verify," one agent said. Jade led them inside. The kitchen was spotless. Her staff ran it like a ship. Still, the men moved through drawers, opened containers, took photos. By the end of the inspection, Jade was on edge. "Thank you," one of them said, barely glancing up. "We'll be in touch." They left without another word. The next morning, the headline hit. Jade's hearth closed for sanitary violations. Jade dropped her phone on the counter. "This isn't happening," she said, breathless. Grant read the article aloud. Photos show expired ingredients, dirty cooking areas, and evidence of pest activity. She grabbed the inspection report. "This is fake. We keep everything dated and spotless." He nodded, calm but cold. "Someone's behind this." Jade stared at him. "You think it's Samantha?" "I know it is," Grant replied. "She's trying to destroy you. What do we do?" Grant reached for his phone. "We fight back." She raised an eyebrow. "With what? More press?" "No," he said, dialing. "With proof." He called Gabriel Ortiz, a private investigator he trusted for boardroom-level corporate espionage. "Find out who staged this," Grant told him. "I want names." Gabriel responded without hesitation. "Give me 2 days. In the meantime." Jade refused to sit still. That afternoon, she called her team into the kitchen. "We're not closing," she said firmly. "Not really, but the notice Mrs. Rosa began." "We can't serve here," Jade continued. "But we can still cook. We'll deliver. We'll package every order. We'll bring the restaurant to them." Grant blinked. "You want to run a shadow kitchen?" "I want to survive," Jade said. Grant smiled. "Then let's survive." They worked around the clock. They posted on social media. *Jade's hearth is coming to your door. Homemade, honest, and unstoppable. *orders flooded in. Drivers showed up with tote bags. Customers posted videos of their meals arriving in handwritten boxes with thank you notes. Jade cooked through the night. But the next morning, another article dropped. "Illegally operating restaurant defies closure order, of course," Jade muttered. Scrolling the headline, "She doesn't stop." Later that day, Grant's phone buzzed. It was Gabriel. "She planted someone," Gabriel said over the line. "An informant inside the restaurant. He's been feeding her everything." Grant's expression darkened. "Who?" Gabriel gave the name that evening. Grant and Jade confronted the staff member, a timid young man who usually handled inventory. "What are you doing with your phone behind the pantry door?" Grant asked. The man stammered, tried to hide it. Grant grabbed the device and scrolled through the messages. Photos of documents, notes on food supplies, orders, all sent to a number labeled SL. Jade stared at him. "You were spying. I needed the money," he whispered. "Get out," Grant said sharply. Now, the man left without another word. Jade leaned on the counter, exhausted. "This is a war," she whispered. Grant stepped closer. "Then we're going to end it." Jade sat at the back of the silent kitchen, the only sound being the low hum of the fridge. Around her, her team had gone home, exhausted from another day of takeout operations. They weren't supposed to be doing this. The city had shut them down, but she couldn't let Samantha win. She stared at the inspection report again. Lies, every word. Expired products that didn't exist. Cockroach photos that weren't from their kitchen. Forged evidence, planted by someone willing to ruin lives over revenge. The door creaked. Grant stepped in, sleeves rolled, phone still. "In his hand, we have proof," he said, voice low but electric. Gabriel traced the fake inspection photos. They were staged in a storage unit Samantha rented under another name. Jade stood. "You're sure?" Grant nodded. "Leased in the name Lana Gray, but the payment trail leads right back to her." Jade's pulse kicked. "We can clear our name." "Not just that," Grant said, pulling out a folder. "We're going public." The next morning, news outlets exploded. Socialite Samantha Langford, linked to sabotage, scheme, private investigator, uncovers fraud behind restaurant. Closer Jade's hearth, cleared of all violations, set to reopen at the health department. Jade and Grant walked into the regulatory office armed with Gabriel's findings. The lead inspector met them with a heavy sigh. "This changes everything." Jade crossed her arms. "We want the restaurant reopened, today." The man nodded. "It will be reinstated immediately. I'm sorry for what you've been through." Jade felt her throat tighten. Grant placed a steady hand on her back. "Told you we'd win." That night, Jade stood outside Jade's hearth, watching the line wrap around the block. Cameras, customers, neighbors, reporters. Everyone wanted a table. Inside, her team moved like clockwork, wiping counters, prepping trays. They'd survived the storm. She walked through the doors and into the kitchen. Her team erupted into cheers. "You did it," Mrs. Rosa shouted, pulling her into a hug. Jade laughed. "We did it." Grant leaned in from the doorway. "Guess this means you're letting me eat for free again." Jade turned, crossing her arms. "Free? Never," he grinned. "Worth a shot." Hours later, after the rush had died and the staff had gone home, Jade sat alone at one of the dining tables, finally still. Grant walked over with 2 bowls of yakisoba and set one down in front of her. "You look wrecked," he said, sitting beside her. "I am," she replied, slurping a noodle. "But it's a good kind of wrecked." He watched her for a moment. "You know, I've never seen anyone fight for something the way you fought for this." Jade didn't meet his eyes. "I didn't do it alone. You didn't need to," he said, "but I'm glad you let me help." She glanced at him now. Something in his expression had changed. Softer, more careful. A question behind his gaze. "I need to tell you something," Grant said, setting down his chopsticks. Jade raised an eyebrow. Is this where you tell me you've secretly been a food critic all along? He chuckled. No, but it is where I tell you that I like you. Jade froze. Grant's voice was quiet. Not just as a partner. Not just because you make incredible yakisoba. I like you, she blinked, heart thudding. Grant, I know it's complicated, he continued. We live in different worlds. But I've never met anyone who challenged me the way you do, or made me want to be better. Jade didn't know what to say. She felt everything at once, confusion, panic, warmth, and fear. I don't fit in your world, she said finally. I'm not asking you to, Grant replied. I'm asking you to let me be part of yours. The room went still, and just when she was about to respond, the front door opened. Samantha walked in. Her heels clicked softly across the floor. She wasn't wearing her usual Armano red lipstick. No flawless bun, just a white coat and tired eyes. Congratulations, she said, stopping a few feet away. Jade stood slowly. You've got some nerve. I came to apologize. Grant folded his arms. That's a first. Samantha looked between them. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You exposed me. You sabotaged an entire restaurant, Jade said. Sharply, you deserved worse. Samantha nodded once. Probably, I didn't expect you to fight back. Jade's voice was steady. That's your mistake. Samantha took a step back. I won't bother you again. She turned and walked out. No drama, no final insults, just a quiet ending. Grant looked at Jade. Are you okay? She exhaled slowly. Now I am. The following weeks passed in a blur. The restaurant thrived. New customers came in every day. Local publications hailed Jade's hearth as a beacon of authenticity in a world of pretense. Influencers posted their meals. Tourists booked tables in advance. And in the middle of it all, Jade and Grant worked side by side, building something real. Late one evening, as they cleaned the last pots, Jade said quietly, I never thought I'd end up here. Grant leaned on the counter. You mean in your own restaurant? I mean, with someone like you, in my corner. He smiled. You earned it. She smiled back. So did you. That night, she went home, heart calmer than it had been in months. But the peace didn't last long. The next day, Jade arrived. Early, and found an envelope waiting on the counter with her name handwritten. Across the front dot, inside was a note. Don't run. Meet me at the Grand Imperial Hotel. 7 p.m. Grant, her heart flipped. He wanted to talk again. But this time, it felt different. This time, she wasn't sure she was ready for what he'd say. Jade stood in front of the Grand Imperial Hotel, heart thudding louder than the street traffic around her. The note in her pocket felt heavier than it should have. She'd read it at least 10 times. Every word sat in her chest like an unanswered question. Don't run. She took a breath and stepped through the tall glass doors, inside. A hostess greeted her, eyes lighting up with recognition. You must be Jade. This way, please. The woman led her through a quiet corridor and into a private dining room, minimalist, candlelit, elegant. At the center stood a single table, and beside it, Grant. He wasn't in a suit tonight. No tie, no power posture. Just a dark shirt rolled at the sleeves, nervous hands stuffed into his pockets, and that same unreadable look she'd come to recognize as vulnerability. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said softly. I almost didn't, Jade replied. Stepping closer, I wasn't sure what this was. He gestured toward the table. Dinner, just us. She folded her arms. You sent a note like a movie villain. He smiled faintly. I didn't know how else to say what I needed to say. Jade hesitated, then sat. He joined her. The dishes arrived one by one, her recipes, every single one. Yakisoba, shrimp, fritters, fried rice with scallions and lemon zest. She raised an eyebrow. Did you cook this? I helped, Grant replied. Let's just say, I didn't burn it. A smile crept across her face despite herself. When they were halfway through the meal, Grant reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, unassuming box. He didn't open it, just placed it on the table between them. Jade looked at it, then at him. Before you freak out, Grant said quickly, it's not a ring. She blinked. It's not. No, he said. It's a key. Jade tilted her head. To what? He opened the box. Inside was a small brass key attached to a tag that read *Unit to A. Storage kitchen. Your name on the lease. Jade's lips parted. I bought it this morning, Grant said. Fully stocked, full autonomy. No investors, just yours. To do whatever you want. She stared at him. Why? Because you've given so much to everyone else, he said. It's time someone gave something to you. Her throat tightened. Grant, I don't need, I know, he interrupted gently. You don't need anyone, but I do. I need you, not just in the kitchen, not just for business. I want you, all of it. She looked down at the key, hands trembling slightly. I spent my whole life thinking love was something I'd get to later, Grant continued, voice quiet. After the deals, after the empire, after I proved I didn't need it. But then you walked in covered in juice, by the way, and nothing made sense anymore. Jade let out a small laugh, despite the tears burning behind her eyes. Grant leaned forward. You don't need to say anything. I just wanted you to know. I love you. The words landed like thunder and warmth all at once. She took a breath, then reached across the table and placed her hand over his. I love you too, Jade said. The moment hung there, full and honest and real. No games, no conditions, just truth. 3 months later, the doors to Jade's Hearth to A opened for the first time. Located on the edge of her old neighborhood. It was everything Jade had ever dreamed. Open counters, communal tables, warm lighting, and a kitchen that felt like home. Her grandmother helped with recipes and sometimes sat at the front table, telling customers old stories. The menu was smaller, more personal, and every dish came with a story. Jade's team grew. Business thrived. The critics came and stayed. Food shows called. Awards followed, but none of it compared to what mattered most. One night after closing, Grant met her in the kitchen, a small paper takeout bag in his hand. What's this? Jade asked. Dinner, he replied. She opened it and laughed. Inside was a messily packed, oversauced yakiso, vocally made by someone still learning. Did you make this? I tried. She took a bite. It's awful, I know, but, she added, leaning into him, it's mine. Grant kissed her, and the kitchen grew quiet. Together, they'd built something that couldn't be taken. Not by sabotage, not by fear, not even by soy sauce. Overload, just love, slow-cooked, messy, and entirely theirs.